So please welcome first Laura Newbern. I'll call out the other poets' names when they come up too, but please welcome Laura.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. And thank you, Travis, for making all of these arrangements. And especially thank you, Tom, for inviting me and for putting me in such wonderful company. I'm going to begin tonight with a poem by someone else. And that's the very late and very great Frank Stanford. Tom, actually, in a very casual conversation a very long time ago, steered me towards Stanford's work, and I've been grateful ever since. So, this poem is short and it's really dark, like most of Stanford's work, but beautifully so, I think. It's called You. You. Sometimes in our sleep, we touch the body of another woman, and we wake up, and we know the first nights with summer visitors in the 3-storied house of our childhood. Whatever we remember, the darkest hair being brushed in front of the darkest mirror in the darkest room. Okay, so I'm going to read a few poems from my book, Love in the Eye, and then I'll read a couple of new poems. I'd like to also thank the weather for being so complimentary to some of the stuff I chose to read today. So this first poem is called Pain. Pain. The mailman is drunk. It is spring. It is spring and the mailman is drunk. I see him shaking his way down the wet street from my window, which is pretty. My pretty window the mailman is drunk in, out in his slicker and bright boots. Did I say it is raining? Rain and the mailman is drunk and only 8 homes on this street, and he is crashing into air in the middle. I love him for this. Love him drunk, in rain, in the green pain oblivion is. Is it sick or strange, placing myself here in the story, his green princess? I did say it is spring, and I see him, and see the new leaves, slappy wet, begin to make for the mailman a frame shaped like a leafy heart, a heart as leafy as if we were this raining morning happy. A kindness. This morning, I woke up angry at the Jehovah's Witnesses. Why not go help someone in actual need, I thought, or at least go stand by a well in case a baby drops in. But I was kind to them when they came. They were ladies, and I couldn't help it. The one standing a little behind and staring away to the side, down to the end of the street, where surely fields used to be. The other doing the talking, bending a little, as if she were pouring tea through the screen door. What was it? Something from Matthew, something better than Jesus is watching. And as she was talking, I was bending a little back, as in return, because there was something about the noon sun beating the bare head of the lady gazing away that seemed to demand it. These summer days, they are so big, so empty, so blank, that long ago fields can actually fill them. And you can stand on a porch and, staring, fill up the fields, whether with flowers drowsing, or workers in wavering heat, or children in deep shade. What was the lady seeing? Maybe the children waving. Maybe a cloud coming. This next poem takes its cues from the ABC daytime drama All My Children, which I realize is no longer in existence, which is really too bad. Maria returns. Today, all week, all summer, dark Maria returns to her husband, Edmund. She has been dead 5 seasons. But for Maria, turns out, death was only a loss. And she returns at a loss, standing among the ferns in the park of at last, alone and holding a suitcase. Few on my side of the track would say how delicious this is. The waiting, mostly for Edmund's expression, when he will see her again for the first time, in the stables of all places, the humblest of places, we'd probably all agree in the heat of our houses, for love, for re-entry. Maria will cross the straw. Edmund will cross the straw. Deep summer, all summer, the hummingbirds ripping themselves to and from the feeder. There are a handful of poems in the book about childhood, and this is one of them, probably my favorite one. So. In the Jewish cemetery. Childhood is like the hibiscus next to the garbage can. Wide opening cone, you miss, though it's there. White ear with lavender hole, so close to your cheek. My mother leaned over and told me it was too sacred to bomb. So I took with me the old stones, their marks, the walls that closed in, the fact that what was left over the graves was the piece of the sky they lay quietly under, periwinkle in color. My mother was very beautiful, always in navy, Givenchy, Dior, smelling of ribbed sweaters and flowers, and sometimes telling a thing so deeply into my ear it would begin to bloom there. And when we were there, it was twilight, as it is now, and I am alone in the yard, or almost alone in the yard. If my book tells any kind of story, it's a love story, or really a longing story, a story about longing, between a quiet observer and the world of cities and parents and mailmen, various animals, sticks and stones. I'm going to read 3 short poems, old poems, from a sequence inspired by a stick I picked up on a mountainside in California. So from the walking stick. History. Today I took a big stick off a tree and hit the tree with the stick to make the stick mine, and then, as I walked with it, struck every rock within striking distance, and even a few that weren't. I hit my way through the world, rocks Daisies, water, oh, it felt good. It felt like 1,000,000 years, and recording it all with each whack, I thought, tomorrow somebody might pick up my stick, might turn my stick in their hands, and might even say to themselves, something has happened here. The shadow. This evening I called the stick Pearl because it looked old and elegant leaning against the white wall. Because in the quiet, the stick was my great-grandmother Pearl's right leg. Pearl of the ragged Bible, Pearl of the soft backyard, and the soft porch where the leg swung to the Bible, predicted a rain, and dangled a black shoe. I knew her one evening only, and only as tall as her thigh, I said to the stick, Pearl, you can only be Pearl for tonight, and only by lamplight. Full moon. Tonight, the stick fell in love with itself. It lay on the carpet and acted as much like a branch as it could. It was awful to see it reaching for sun and birds and needles. I said, cut it out. I said, stick, do you know all your small round elbows? Stick, do you know that the birds are not looking for you? Or no, you bend like a tall girl's arm when she's standing before her beloved, undressed and in love. And the stick fell in love all over again. It lay there a while and was quiet, and then I shut off the lamp, and we lay there looking at all that light in the dark. Okay, so now I'm going to read just three newer poems. I live in the middle of Georgia, in Milledgeville, which used to be the home of Flannery O'Connor, still is, really, and used to be home to the largest asylum in the country. It's actually a beautiful place, and sometimes I drag a chair out there and write. Milledgeville is also the kind of place where people seem to lock their doors and light their lamps kind of on the early side. And sometimes there's not a lot to do besides watch the neighbors as they tuck themselves in. So this is called Moon Street. Moon Street. At night, my neighbor comes out to cover his car. He casts the big sheet like a net and smooths it over the roof, and the rest falls like a dress. Just so, the car's put to bed. It is a loving gesture, I think, on one of those nights when the clouds stay white as they cross the black sky. It is one of those nights like a night on a farm. The clouds stay white, the chickens are bid good night, the haystacks rise in stillness, and any child, no matter how bad, is good. But here, there is no farm. No hand wanders the place to check that the gates are closed. No river runs to the north here. No boots stand tall grass by the door. There are just our regular houses, our driveways and lawns, over the street and under the moon. A siren somewhere. And my neighbor coming back out, surveying the car once more from his stoop, and raising an arm in the air. Quick, inexplicable gesture. Then the light out, then in. He goes in. friend John and ask him, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm going with my father to pick up a body." I pause, because it is so late at night, and no one has ever said that to me before. And in such a calm newspaper voice, "It happens, we're going to pick up a body." The Christmas lights in my kitchen are still plugged in. They're green, and the room is darker for them, but glowing. And as I say, "What?" I put it together. John's father's a minister, and he must drive on short notice 2 hours to Atlanta to bring somebody home. So there is no need to say what, to flash that fish of a question out of the still water, because it is matter-of-factly swimming away. And in fact, John and his father are already driving, already cutting their way through the cold night northward, up I-75, which at this hour is practically empty, but for the giant signs and the stars. "And we are strapped," John says, just as quietly, meaning because I don't know what it means, and riffle the surface again with a "huh?" Meaning they're armed. "We're armed," he says. "There's a pistol in here somewhere." John is always soft-spoken, and in the folded note of his voice, the pistol is hidden under some carpeted flap or in the well of the wheel. "And then I couldn't stay home," he continues. "It seemed right to go with." And I'm nodding. I'm seeing his father, the minister, I've never met him, making that journey alone. A man in a van on a terrible, solemn, armed errand of love. He must do it often enough, and it has to be better to have someone living beside you in that cocoon. No radio station would do, but talking would. Company. And for a very short while, there are 3 of us going, John and his father and I. And later, when I am sleeping, there will be 3 of them coming back, well after midnight, returning to our small town, which is a town that tucks itself in like a mother and leaves on a single light. So the night ends and opens. But I am lonely. I have to ask at the last, is it a man or a woman? A woman, John says. And then, again, it's a woman. So this is the last poem I'll read, and thank you all again so much for listening. This poem is in part inspired by a story by Anton Chekhov. He's one of my favorite writers, and the story is called Gooseberries. It's also, and maybe more importantly, a love poem. Asylum Pastoral, or Happiness. Here, across the big lawn and over the dome, the gray in the sky is expanding, gently and slowly outward, and all over Georgia today, it is going to rain. And in the story last night, which I read to you in the tenderest voice I could muster, the peasants stood by a pond with the filthy ducks and the slick lilies, and rain was coming. The men in the story were bathing, 2 in the bathhouse, 1 in the terrible pond, the one who would not tolerate silence, complacency, took to the pond and the oncoming rain. And when I asked you this morning, was it too grim, too much? I meant to be funny. I meant you are dear to me as life would have it right now. And right here to my left are a greenish awning, great corroding columns, 2 doves diving in ivy and doorway, and spots of brass in the sky, dull drums of brightness promising something, health, love, unbridled silence and stillness. One cannot hear the past or manage the future, but sitting back to a tree, watching the slight light shift on a blue cupola, feel one moment's happiness. Last night I read to you, and in the turning breeze, the rain that is coming, the cool of the pond as it must have felt to the man Ivan, who in his unstillness and in his delaying the beautiful girl who would bring him sweetness and sleep, reminds me of you. Like a candle, like happiness, so she moves through the pages. Thank you.